Now, isn't that AP nymph a good looking fly? Well, let's get it out of the vise right now. We're going to have to reposition the vise from the full rotation position to the inline rotation position. That'll give us an opportunity to enjoy some of the features of the inline rotation. Now I'm going to set my hook in the vise so that the shank is parallel with the tying table. Oh, that's a little bit off. Let me reset that. And now we want to get the hook shank on axis. And you recall this tool that came in the box with your vise. It's called the centering gauge. And I'm going to slide back and place that on the bent shaft. And you'll notice that the pin now is above the shank of the hook. So I'll loosen the friction screw and then push the jaw forward, raising the shank of the hook up even with the centering gauge. Now I'll take that off, and the vise is basically set now to tie rotary on this size of a hook, and we won't have to change that online axis setting until we change hook sizes. And usually it stays pretty much on within a range of hook sizes. You know, if you pretty well can cover a range of hooks like size 12 to 14, and then you'll switch if you go to a 16. Now I've placed a thread base starting at the middle of the hook and going to the end of the shank. I've already pre-stacked a clump of elk hair for the tail. And I'll set that stacker out of my way. And we'll tie the tail, first measuring it for length. I would like it to end just about even with the hook shank. And I'll tie this in. Notice that I don't snug up real tight at this point. I'm going to make another turn, and now I'll really get tight there. I want to hold the material on top, but if I do it on the first turns, the hair flares up real bad, and it just gets in my way and makes doing everything from that point on difficult. Now I'm advancing the thread to the back of the hook with evenly spaced tight turns. Now I'll fuzz up that tail. I like the tail on my stimulators to flare out. Now let me grab a hackle, a brown one in this particular case, and we'll wrap forward to our starting position. I'll just let that hackle hang in the breeze for the moment, and I'll bring the dubbing wax into play again. And we'll apply dubbing. In this case it's some gray muskrat dubbing, but it can be whatever color you want to make your stimulator. And I'll start dubbing here at the front. Now we can wrap the dubbing around to form the body. We can rotate the hook to do so. Or we can wrap both at the same time, allowing us to inspect all sides of the fly, as well as rapidly place the body. Now I've run out of dubbing a little bit on the early side. That's okay. We'll put a little bit more wax in place and apply some more dubbing to finish off the body. Notice that I'm leaving the guard hairs in. I think it just makes a lot buggier fly that way. Now, not only is this vise great for rotating and applying materials that way, but I also like to use it just in different positions to place the fly in an easy to work on position. And I find it a lot easier to keep from snagging the hook point when it's up here where I can keep an eye on it. So I rotate the vise 1/2 turn to do that. Now let me grab the feather and the thread and bring them together, and notice that the thread is to the front. I'll just start rotating the vise, advancing both materials to the front of the body. Okay, now I can separate the two, and I lost it, and it really makes for kind of a mess to do it that way. So let me show you a trick to avoid that little problem. I'll just wrap my thread back there again, bring the feather around behind the thread. The thread is on the third finger. The first two fingers hold the feather, and now I'll just advance everything. From your perspective, it probably looks very similar. But now we reach the tie-off point. I drop the thread. It's called the drop tie-off, and I'll rotate the vise 2 more turns, and that anchors the hackle. Now let me just go ahead and trim off the excess, and I want to show you another trick. I usually trim the hackle along the top so that there's a place for the wing. Well, I see an awful lot of fly tyers come in and they trim the feather off and then they trim off the fibers. Well, if you just take a long, hard cut at it, it gets them all at once. I'll set that aside. Let me advance my thread forward now into the center of what I call the winging area. And I'll get my pre-stacked elk hair for the wing and take it and get it ready to place that wing. Now I like the stimulator wings on the flies that I tie to have the wing and the tail end in the same position. So I line them up, and then I can reach in with my left hand and hold them in that position. Just like I did on the tail material, I'm going to anchor that with softer wraps, and then right directly to the rear of it, I will use the really tight wraps. That way it keeps the flare out of my way. Now, and I really want to bind that in place there. Now I'm going to loosen up and wrap softer wraps as I go towards the back. What that does is, you see, it keeps my wing from flaring